All right, so chapter 5, the art of ensuring integrity. Who could give me an example or a definition of what integrity is when it comes to information security?
Doing something right without people looking at it.
Okay, so in our case, being in the Army is doing the right thing even when no one is watching. When it comes to actual information security, it basically boils down to the same thing: is you are who you say you are. So in that case, it is the data is what it says it is. So if it says it's a download for an operating system, we use hashing functions to verify that. Okay, so that's how integrity kind of ties in with hashing. So with hashing, you take that file size, or you take that entire image of, let's say, that operating system, and you click generate hash, and it's going to spit out a long, maybe 64 character hash that is representation. It's a representative of that file. So if even one bit was changed within that software file, that hash would be totally different. That's what makes hashing so powerful, is that even small changes are noticed. Okay, so if they wanted to, who here has done a PE at the schoolhouse already? Anybody done PEs yet? Probably everybody here, but not you guys yet. Okay, so PEs that's like your hands-on test that you do at the end of your modules, okay? Now, we're all going through and doing the exact same steps, right? So to quickly grade all of our stuff, could we not just check the hash of that VM? Because if we all followed the right steps, then the hash would be the same for absolutely everybody, right? So that would be a quick way that we could grade it, because even if one thing is out of place, the hash should be totally different, okay? So again, this phone, if we were to say, I need to represent this phone as it is right now with a hash, we would connect it, and I would hit generate hash. It would spit that out. So that way, if this changed in any way, shape, or form, I would know because that hash has changed, okay? So a lot of times, like when it comes to the forensic side of things, when you're doing investigations and whatnot, you take an image of the laptop, let's say the laptop in question from, let's say it was a digital crime. So somebody was caught hacking into something. When we secure this evidence, the first thing we do is take an image of it, and then we generate a hash of that image. So that way, as it's going through its life cycle as now being an evidence, we can see if somebody deleted something or changed something based on that actual hash, okay? So let's go through and talk a little bit about how we the application of these different algorithms. So first and foremost, hashing is a tool that ensures data integrity. We just talked about that, right? We're already ahead of ourselves. Awesome. And it's going to produce a fixed length representation. So what does that mean? This could be 17 terabytes of data. It's still going to give us that 64 character length hash, okay? Or 128-bit, depends on the actual hashing algorithm. Or it could be one letter in Notepad. It's still going to give us that same fixed length hash, okay? And then we can generate that for whatever we want to verify is what it says it is. We're able to just verify that that hash is exactly the same. The next part is hashing is a one-way mathematical function. So that means we can't reverse engineer these things, okay? So that's why you can publicly put hashes up there for these files, and you're not going to be able to you're not going to be able to kind of crack the hash, if you will. Now, there are tools, especially for like weaker hashes, older technology, you are able to crack the hashes. But if you're using the more up-to-date math, if you will, because all it is math, it's going to be harder or impossible to break, okay? If you are going into the ethical hacking side, one thing if you want to spend your free time looking into is pass the hash, which is where we don't actually find out what that password is. We don't try to, decrypt this hash. We literally just fool the system into thinking we're someone else by using the hash that we captured on the network. So passing the hash is actually a fun way to like kind of test that. So if you're looking for more information, definitely look up passing the hash as a way to kind of hack into machines, or it's not cracking passwords, but it's a similar idea. A cryptographic hash function has the following properties. The input can be any length, like we talked about. Our output is going to be a fixed length. The hash function is one way, not reversible. And then finally, two different input values will always result in a different hash value, okay? So this iPad, or I'm sorry, this laptop and this iPhone they're never going to be the same. Like, you're never going to have overlapping hashes, okay? They are 100% going to be independent, and that's just how the algorithm was created. Can you totally geek out and figure out how these hashing things are? Yeah, if you're a math person, go nuts, you know, or if you're going into computer science, like you're actually going to, you know, learn more about the kind of under the hood when it comes to these different hashing algorithms, okay? But for the actual Security Plus, you just have to understand hashing, number one, and number two, you just kind of have to be able to identify different hashes that are out there. So if it says MD5, then you should be able to know, hey, by the way, this is a hash. You know, they're talking about a hash. So the one that's most common, and it was cracked, I mean, it's pretty weak, is the MD5 algorithm. So in this case, we still use MD5 today. It's not like it's totally obsolete, but we're going to do it for things that are not necessarily business critical. It's going to be more for like validation of files when you download them, because it is quick and easy to, you know, generate an MD5 hash. So again, it's not resource intensive at all, but we're not going to use it to, let's say, to take all of our usernames and passwords for our application and store them in a database. We're probably not going to use just plain MD5 hashes because it's just a really weak hashing. The next one is SHA, or the secure hash algorithm. This one was the one that you're going to see more and more use today. So you have SHA-224, 256, 384, and SHA-512. In this case, all these numbers mean is the actual number of bits that are used. So with MD5, you're going to have 128-bit hash value, whereas SHA, you can, you know, go to 512. You can have that kind of that longer hash. So that way, when we're storing, you know, usernames and passwords and stuff in data stores, we're less likely to have a data leak. Okay, does that make sense? Another thing I want to call out is another call out to NIST, which is the National Institute of Standards and Technology. NIST is going to be where you find kind of how we do IT and specifically cybersecurity in the U.S. So this is kind of our, not necessarily a governing body, but it's more of, think of it like a best practices, okay? So you'll see NIST represented, or, you know, you'll see NIST documents, things like that, all the time. And if you want to learn more about cybersecurity or like the definition of what a cloud is, all that type of stuff, it's all represented up on NIST's website. So I would definitely check it out and kind of thumb through there, because it is a really, really good resource, especially when, like, if you're National Guard and you're trying to get a job in IT and you're on a team and they're like, hey, we have to come up with a new acceptable use policy for our app or for our users. You could go on to NIST and get prime examples of these, and you look like a hero because it looks like you spent all this time doing it, where in reality you just cut, copy, pasted from NIST, kind of did some wordsmithing, and then enjoyed the rest of your weekend. And they think you were at home slaving over this all weekend. So NIST is a great resource for those kind of things. So you might be asking, well, if this is standard and like you can look at a password and you can see that it's MD5, well, then that's not very secure. True. So there's things that we can do in order to make it more difficult for the attacker to try to crack these hashes. Again, there are tools that are out there like Hashcat and a couple other ones that use GPUs, graphics, in order to, or graphics cards in order to break these. Some of them are breakable, but it's all about, you know, how long it'll take them. So again, MD5 is instant, whereas your higher SHA ones are going to be more difficult. But what you do is you have what's called salt. So when you add salt to your food, it changes the flavor, right? It's the same idea with your whenever you salt your hashes. So salting is used to make them even more secure. So if two users have the same password, they will also have the same password hashes. So, but when you add the salt in there, which is just a little bit of randomness, those two passwords, because again, whenever hashing would represent, like if we ran a hash on that password, it would be the exact same hash, right? Because that's what represents this. We said that when we create our hash of our password or the files, whatever, it's going to generate that same hash every single time. So by adding salting, we're adding a little bit of randomness in there. So that way it goes through and gives us a more random password. So in this case, our hash is password, or our password is password for both of them. But when it adds randomness, you can see that these hash values are now completely different. So it's not like just the first part is all the same and then it changes. It totally changes what our hash value is here. Okay? Does that make sense with salting? Kind of what it does and the purpose of salting? Again, you just have to have a higher understanding of password salting, or I'm sorry, hash salting, but you primarily use it for passwords. And it's before, like we'll take their password, we will salt it, hash it, and put it in a database to store. Because if this random, or if this hash value ever gets leaked out, they're not going to know what the salt is, so the password will still be secure. Okay? HMAC is a little bit, it kind of takes it one step further in that it's adding a secret key to that as well. So we have our plain text message. We then have our secret key that goes into our hashing function, and then it spits out what the what our hash is here at the bottom. So it's just a different algorithm that uses a more secure, like a key, in order to do it. So it's a step above salting, and then it's going to use a private key in that case, okay? So HMAC uses a key, salting uses random data, okay? Make sense? Again, this is just one of those kind of recall things. If you want to look up HMAC explained, I'll definitely throw some YouTube videos in the classroom for that. But it is literally just what this graphic is. You have your plain text, you have your secret key, and then you get a hash there at the bottom. Digital signatures. So you should have, when you got here, you guys have all gone to the schoolhouse or not yet? You have. So did you guys use your CAC to sign your documents when you were at the actual thing? So that's a prime example of what a digital signature is. So with that, a lot of people think that a digital signature is like just a digital copy of your signature. That's not true at all. So a digital signature is using a hash function, or in your case, you have your CAC card. So your CAC card was put into the machine, and then it created the digital signature based on your CAC being there, okay? Who can tell us what non-repudiation is from our previous discussions up here? Who remembers that keyword?
Being able to prove something happened.
Absolutely. So non-repudiation is without a shadow of a doubt, this person was here. So if we have them on film there, or in your case, you put your CAC card in the actual machine, that says that you are who you say you are. So again, you are who you say you are, digital signature, those kind of go hand in hand. But you have non-repudiation because you physically put your device there, something that you had access to and only you had access to. Because not only did you put your card in, you had to put your PIN in as well in order to generate that. Okay, so it was something you had and something you knew. So there was a level of kind of two-factor that was there as well. Okay, so digital signatures are a way that we can say without a shadow of a doubt that we are the ones who signed that. And it has been proven now that digital signatures hold up in court. They're just as good, if not better, as a ink and paper signature. Yeah.
So you say a signature is kind of like you have the data of the whatever document you're signing, plus your little like salt you put on it, and that is the hash for your signature.
Absolutely. So it could be time generated. It could be username generated. You know, the act of you putting in your information kind of changes that hash a little bit. A lot of times people will have, like, I have my digital signature or my key just saved on my machine. So in Adobe, you actually have like your signature that it has all your information. But in the case of like using your CAC to do it, you're taking your the different certificates and stuff that are on your CAC plus your PIN in order to say that's your salt. It's then it looks at this document. We know how big this document is. We put them together, and it creates that hash, and that's what gets stamped onto that digital document. Does that make sense? Kind of what that's used for? Cool. A primary example of what you would see on Security Plus is digital signatures are an example of what part of the CIA triad. Okay. For you guys in the back, the CIA triad is like the cornerstone of cybersecurity, and that's confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Those are the three things that we have to make sure that we are ensuring when it comes to information security. So that would be a prime Security Plus question. So in this case, digital signatures are proving you are who you say you are. So in that case, the answer would be integrity is where it would is what it would fall under. And then again, the key word there is digital signatures provide repudiation or non-repudiation. So we have our private key. So in this case, we are using the certificates that are on our CACs. We have our message. So we're going to get a message digest. So we're going to basically look at that document, and then it's going to come up with a digest. Who knows what the word digest means? If something is, like back in the day we had, there was a magazine called Reader's Digest. Anybody know what that term means?
Like a summary.
Kind of like a summary of it. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to have our summary. We are then going to apply our private key, and that's going to give us our digital signature. So again, what we just explained there gets encrypted and added to that document. Certificates. So certificates are very similar to the hashing functions in that we have a bunch of certificates that are on our CAC. That's half of it. And then we also, if you want your laptop to work, your personal laptop, you're going to have to download a bunch of certificates that are used in the actual military itself. And if you have issues with that, if you can't use your CAC reader, if you need an extra CAC reader, I have a couple of them in my room, just let me know. I can help you get that set up. But you download those certificates onto your computer, so that way you can interact with the different government websites, okay? A digital certificate is equivalent to an electronic passport. So it's the same thing as having our private keys, but it's for different websites that are out there on the internet. And it allows different computers, people, websites, different organizations to exchange information securely. So it verifies their certificates are on our CAC cards for this example. And it allows us to really, really easily access a lot of websites. If you think about like all the different websites we can access with our CACs, it's it's a feat of technological amazement. Like from someone who has set up, all these different systems in the past, the fact that we could just put our cards in and everything just works is amazing. And there's so much technology that's underneath the hood for that to all work. And as much as we complain about, oh, this website's down or that website's down, it's amazing how well the military has done like kind of our authentication. And we literally just have to remember our PINs. We don't have to remember usernames. We don't have to remember passwords for all these different sites. We literally just have to remember our CAC PINs. So it's, to me, like as a technologist, it's really amazing what they've done. So what we're doing with a digital certificate is making sure that the user that sent this information is who they claim to be, okay? So for example, if you want your website to have that little lock in it, you have to have a certificate on it. And having that certificate set up, you then set up HTTPS or Hypertext Transfer Protocol Secure, and that basically says, I've gone through, I have purchased and proven that I am the website owner, and I have installed that certificate on my actual website. So that way when you come to my website, you know that it's secure. If you go to your bank website and it doesn't have that lock, be like, hey, that ain't right. Like something just isn't jiving. Well, in that case, it's probably someone that's doing a man-in-the-middle attack, and they've basically broken down that, or they're hosting a clone of that website in order to get you to put your credentials in, okay? It's because on theirs, they didn't go through and get that certificate to say that they owned that. They couldn't get it because it's already registered. The certificate's already registered to that organization. So certificates allow us to easily make sure that we have secure communication and prove that integrity piece to make sure that website is who it says that it is. Does that make sense? What the underlying thing is there? So digital signatures are more for documents, whereas the certificates, digital certificates, are for you to prove you are who you say you are when it comes to information that's actually exchanged, live information, like websites and things like that, or servers. Any type of servers will have those certificates on it to make sure that it remains secure. So when it comes to the Security Plus, you have to know that the SY0-601, that standard, you're going to have to know that one for sure. I probably had like 3 or 4 questions on mine that just talked about the steps that it actually goes through in order to create that digital certificate. So I will be putting some videos up that explain X509, but for now, I just want you to associate digital certificates with X.509, or that standard that is used to create that certificate, okay? PKI as a whole, the public key infrastructure, utilizes, it's this really big, it's not just the exchanging of keys, it's this whole infrastructure that is used, and it has to do with policies, it has to do with the X509 standard, it has to do with how, how those certificates actually get distributed, how do those certificates, get put onto servers, all of that. That is the PKI, or the public key kind of infrastructure that we use, okay? So you'll have to know the different parts of the digital certificate. So you're going to have to know the CAI, or the certificate algorithm identifier. You'll have to know that it requires a serial number, a subject name. You're going to have to know all those different parts of the certificate. And what CompTIA is really good at is taking a graphic like this and having all of those things off to the side, or maybe it'll have like 4 blanks, but 8 choices, and you just have to drag 4 into the box, okay? Those are your kind of your hands-on portions of the CompTIA test. But you should at least look at a certificate and be able to identify what those different things are. Okay, so I'm not going to go over the database part. I didn't really see any really great examples of how that's going to help you with your Security Plus. So we're not going to go over the database portion at this time. All you need to know about databases is, as it relates to hashing, is we never store usernames and passwords or any PII, personal identifiable information, in plain text on databases. We always want to use hashing or some type of encryption in order to make sure that we obfuscate that data. We want to make sure if somebody gets access to that data store, that it doesn't become or put our organization at risk by leaking that data out, okay? Any questions for today? That is the end of the class. I'm happy to stick around if anybody does have specific questions. But other than that, have a good week, guys. Another short 4-day week, which is awesome.